There's breaking news tonight. Israel now reports that of the 4 sets of remains handed over by Hamas today, 3 have been positively identified, including that of 4-year-old Ariel and 9-month-old Kfir Bibas. In a stunning development, however, 1 set of remains, initially believed to be that of the boy's mother, Shiri, was not hers, nor that of any other Israeli hostage. The IDF also says that forensic evidence and intelligence suggest the boys were murdered. I want to get some perspective now from Adam Bowler, the United States envoy for hostage affairs. Mr. Bowler, I appreciate you being with us. Did Hamas just lie about this? I mean, wouldn't be a surprise. They've lied about lots of things. How did this happen?
I mean, it's stunning. I don't know what they thought when they put the body of somebody else in a coffin and said that it was the mother of 2 kids that have been brutally murdered, whether they thought Israel wouldn't find that or not, but it's absolutely stunning.
Israel, according to Israel, there's also evidence that the children were murdered. Hamas had earlier, months ago, made a statement that they had been killed in an Israeli airstrike. Do you know anything more about what Israel has found out?
The Israelis called us. They called me. They called Steve Witkoff, Secretary of State, Mike Waltz, just before these news reports came out, just before they released it. And they said that forensic evidence definitively proved that those 2 kids, those 2 boys, were brutally murdered in November, so a month after they were taken. And they said that forensic evidence confirmed that.
If the Israeli assessment is accurate and Shiri Bibas' body was not handed over, would U.S. and Israeli officials view that as a violation of the ceasefire deal? Because, I mean, yeah, would that be a violation? Besides being
it's a
horrific, I mean, just a horrific act.
Like you said, Anderson, it's horrific. It's a clear violation. And if I have one piece of advice for Hamas now, it's not only do you need to release her body immediately, but we have the bodies of 4 Americans that are still there, and we have 1 American, Don Alexander. I think you know his family well, and you've done a great job reporting on it. He needs to come home, and if I were them, I'd release everybody, or they're going to face total annihilation right now.
What options do the Israelis have at this point to find Shiri Bibas?
I think right now they need to demand through every country that's coordinating, and they need to go out. And the question here, and this is the question I've asked myself, why would they do this? And I think probably the answer is she was so brutally murdered that she's being hidden or the body has been disposed of, and they probably cannot give her back.
I mean, do you think did they think that the Israelis would not do testing on the remains? I mean, I don't understand the thought process
ridiculous.
Here.
It's completely ridiculous. And the reality here is this is the truth. Right now, with Hamas, you have very few people left. And by the way, Anderson, this was actually a particularly militant splinter group off of Hamas. And so these are particularly difficult. You're talking about the worst of the worst here when you're talking about worse than Hamas. But, these are people that can brutally murder a 9-month-old, younger when the kid was murdered, and somebody that would be 4. And so I wouldn't say they're sophisticated people. They're brutal murderers. And they didn't think through it, quite frankly, I'm sure, or didn't know what to do.
Adam Bowler, I really appreciate the work you do. Thank you.
Thanks, Anderson.
With this news as the backdrop, I want you to know a little bit more about Ariel and Kfir, their mom, and their story, which is now, as it has been for so long, written in tears. On that day of sickening slaughter, this horror stood out. Shiri Bibas cornered, captured, clutching her 2 children, 4-year-old Ariel and 9-month-old Kfir. More than 40 other residents of their kibbutz near Oz, including Shiri's parents, were murdered that day. But Shiri and her kids were taken into Gaza. This surveillance footage, released later by the IDF, shows Shiri and her children being covered. Shiri's husband, Yarden, was captured as well. Beaten by a crowd, his head bloodied, he ended up captive in Gaza too.
We're a small family, and half of them are kidnapped.
Half of your family is
Yeah.
I met with Shiri's cousin, Ifat Seiler, a few days after the kidnapping. She was desperate for word of Shiri and Yarden and their children.
I want to know that they're being fed, if their diaper was changed, if his Kfir got his formula, his bottle, something to eat. This is the only thing that I can do. This is the only thing that helps me be sane right now. Is sitting here with you and talking to reporters and showing their faces and telling their story. I want my family back. Please, I want my family back. I'm trying to be strong and stoic and speak clearly, but I'm devastated. I'm devastated. I don't know what else to do. We need institutions from the world. We need someone to take care of those captive people, civilians, every hour, every day. It's getting worse. I want my family, if they by any chance are watching this, I want them to know that we love them and we're doing everything we can to get them.
Her family heard nothing for almost 2 months. Then Hamas claimed the children and their mother were killed in an Israeli airstrike. Yifat Seiler and her family didn't know what to believe.
53 days of not knowing nothing about Shiri, Yarden, Kfir, and Ariel. Nothing. Nothing. Even the hostages that were released, no one saw them. Nothing. It's... I don't know if a nightmare is even the best way to describe the situation that we are living.
After 484 days held captive, Yarden Bibas was released this month. Embraced by his parents, he had no wife and children to come home to. And now this. Hamas, who stole the children and their mother, today using them once again for propaganda, staging a public spectacle, 4 coffins put on display. They said they held the remains of Shiri Bibas, her 2 children, and another hostage, journalist Oden Lifshitz. Hamas gunmen handed them over to the Red Cross. Back on Israeli soil, the return was more dignified. Mourners came to see the motorcade and pay their respects. Hours later, however, more heartbreak. Israel's military confirmed Oden Lifshitz's remains were in a casket, as were the children's, but Shiri Bibas' body was not. An unidentified body was, but it doesn't match her or any of the other hostages, according to the IDF. Across Israel and much of the world tonight, she and the others are being remembered, in death, but also as they were in life. Oden Lifshitz, Shiri Bibas, and her 2 little boys, Ariel and Kfir, who never got the chance to grow up.